Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and... Where is this? There it is. Hello everyone, I am Minodrake, and I'm pretty sure Markiplier is one of the most recognizable YouTubers in the platform's history. Being a late 2000s kid, his electric personality and entertaining commentary captivated 10-year-old me. His content was deceptively simple. Back then, everyone could become famous by just recording themselves playing a game, but all those people chasing a dream lacked one crucial thing: Mark's personality. Markiplier himself is why people stayed around, and he has now amassed a large significant fan base. But, and ponder this for a moment, what if some sick, degenerate maniac used Markiplier's likeness for their own sadistic desires? Well, my friend Clover, who's a diehard Markiplier fan, suggested I check out Joyful Markiplier Jolly Obby, a joyous and jolly Roblox obby with a dreary like-dislike ratio. Well, I don't know much about this game, but I'm sure it'll be fair and balanced. You know, to respect Markiplier's name? That's all to say about it. Let's get into the game. My first impression of the game was, this looks like a quirky throwaway game. Lucky for the creators, I love those types of games. Though, I don't know if I'm old enough to play this one yet. Let's see here. What? Jolly's above R? Well, I've watched Igarashi. I should be fine. Usually, I'll talk about the group behind this game, but 2/3 of their games are just outwardly guy-style struggle obbies with you don't want to see them in their title that I don't care for. Well, there's also Markiplier-y, but we're getting off topic. Back to the game in question. Joyful Markiplier Jolly Obby. With an impressive hit% like-dislike ratio, I'm sure this will be a great game. At spawn, you're able to get a rocket launcher from this vending machine or a box of different item in this really janky unboxing animation. You're supposed to continue unboxing items to get the key to the first level, but it's a game that someone's already opened the store for you in every public server. Also, I'm pretty sure this section is supposed to be a parody of modern simulator games. Which, if it is, kudos to the creators because I absolutely hate them. Now equipped with game-breaking weapons, an evil voice came to me.
Kill them all.
Aw, yeah. None of these weapons work. They all just kill you when you fire them, which is actually pretty funny. I can't imagine more destructive obby than one where the player basically given weapons of mass destruction. So, they're a funny gimmick. Alright, time to actually start the obby. The second stage is a really simple tightrope. I don't see why people aren't that far. Oh god. Yeah, that's the challenge of this stage. As you try to complete the tightrope, a barrage of pop-ups appear to obscure your vision and you have to close them individually. Yeah. Now I get why there aren't many people past this point. Clearing enough of them to see yourself is nearly impossible, especially since the pop-up rate increases exponentially midway through the tightrope. But hey! You can always pay to remove pop-ups or to skip the stage. Though, I wouldn't pay to skip stage because it just sends you one stage backwards. That's... great. Granted, the game pass to remove the pop-ups is only $1, but I don't like the idea of paying just to make the stage beatable, especially since it only has a 10% chance of working. This is literally gambling to make the game bearable. You know what? No! I'm not going to spend money on this game just to have a playable experience. I will brute force this. Then I spent an hour trying to complete a tightrope to no avail. I even went on my ultra count just to watch myself while I walked through and I still failed. Desperate, I went on my knees and prayed. With the power of adventure vested inside of me, how shall I beat this section? And then I got an answer.
Click to move.
Zero out of 10. What a horrible introduction to the game. Without click to move, this part would be impossible to complete. Hell, even with click to move, it's hard to complete in one go because the other player is blocking you. Yeah, I don't like this stage. Anyway, at least the second stage is way easier. The second stage is actually 3 stages in one, but they're all relatively easy and not the nightmare that stage 1 was. The first of these stages plays like Super Monkey Ball. It's not super hard unless there's some douche blocking your way. The second section just has you run past a boss, but like, it's surrounded by invisible walls, so you literally can't lose. The third section is also just an obby. There should not be a challenge for anyone who's gotten this far. Honestly, the stage felt really fair. All of the challenges were skill-based and nothing was holding the player back from advancing. This should have been the first stage. It's a way better introduction to the game. Let's hope that the rest of the game is like this. The third stage is also really easy. It's just a bit of trial and error, but it wasn't hard at all. You know, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. You're right, Joyful Markiplier's Jolly Obby. For now. Stage 5 is also pretty easy. It's basically just a Markiplier-fied version of Dodge and Teapots of Doom with mines, but it shouldn't be too hard to complete. Stage 6 is a different beast though. High momentum balls roll towards you and stun you on contact. This stage would be fine if the balls didn't stun you, but the fact that they do makes it extremely annoying. There is a saving grace though. If one person gets to the end of the stage, they stop the flow of balls and help other players pass through. That's a pretty cool mechanic, though I wouldn't trust random strangers in Roblox for help. This section is a little less fair than the previous stages, bar 1, but you could probably brute force it if you had enough willpower. Stage 7 is really easy. It's just an obby with spinners and a Markiplier NPC that does some damage to you. It's really fair, especially if you have some distracted NPC while you complete the obby. Now, let's talk about stage 8. It's not good. On the surface, it may seem like a simple obby with bear traps, but you must have forgotten that Satan made this game. The bear traps hitboxes are extremely generous, and you often get caught by them without even touching them. Not to mention that there's a wall that forces you to finish the stage quickly. I spent an embarrassingly long time on the stage because of how difficult it was. Hell, the only reason I finished it was because the wall broke and stopped respawning. And if the obby wasn't hard enough, you had to type out phrases to pass through these walls. Time to bust out the second keyboard. Listen, I'm not a super fast typer, but I feel like this section is nearly impossible for most people. With the wall closing in on you, it's nearly impossible to get through all 3 of these walls. The only reason I beat this stage is because other people were typing out the keywords for me, so they weren't just chatting Markiplier in chat after all. Stage 9 is just a quiz, which is charming but not remarkable. Stage 10, however, is true struggle. This is another one I would have been able to beat on my own. On the surface, it seems like a really simple crosswalk, but this is joyful Markiplier Jolly Obby. It's not that easy. Now, most of the stage is pretty fair. There are clear rest areas when we wait for the next set of cars to pass, and a large car that acts as a time limiter. But the last set of cars is where the stage goes from fair to impossible. Just look at this. Am I supposed to be able to pass through here? I guess you could try to brute force your way through if you had full health, but you almost never have full health when you reach this point, and you can't just wait for health to regenerate because of the large car that passes through. I spent a solid 30 minutes trying to beat this level to no avail. The only reason I beat this section was because one guy from first stage stopped all the cars temporarily and let us pass. I dreaded this section. It teases the player making an super section seem possible. It would have been so much better if there wasn't a time limit, but I guess it accomplishes its goal of being a challenging stage. It wasn't fun though, and it gets no praise from me. Stage 11 is a pretty easy obby that incorporates the Markiplier model from Markipliery. The key is to avoid his arms, but it's super easy. Stage 12 is also really easy. I don't know if there's any actual challenge to it. You literally just walk and wait. Stage 13 is also pretty easy. Okay. Yeah, the platform shifts twice, but if you're a good obby player, it shouldn't be an issue at all. Stage 14 is really interesting too. You have to stand on a moving platform avoiding invisible lasers indicated by the floating SpongeBob heads. While I confused about my first runs through it, it was super satisfying to finally pass through. I feel like kind of a kid while avoiding those lasers. Now, when I saw these balls, that's when I decided it was the right time to make a private server, because I'm not going to deal with other people ruining this obby. Stage 15 was pretty easy. A little challenging to deal with the ball's rotation, but I eventually got the hang of it. Stage 16 was pretty easy too. Even though my vision was obscured during most of it, I was able to brute force it with relative ease. Stage 17 was actually one of my favorite stages in the game. You have to drive a sled through a really tight forest, and I really liked this course. It felt extremely fair and rewarding to finally complete the stage. It kinda reminds me of a Dusty Trip, and I love that game. Of course, like every stage of this game, I learned a bit over myself. Like that I tend to celebrate victories too early. Often. I swear I died more times I predetermined to jump off my sled than I did from the trees. Anyway, what a great stage! I hope that the next stage is as amazing. And then I saw the face of God test me. Do not pass. This is the worst stage in the game. Remember the first stage? Yeah, it's another blind tightrope. Except this time, instead of a million pop-ups that were annoying to deal with, we're literally blinded by an opaque fog. Oh, and the floor is slippery, so you can say bye to click to move. Yeah, I'm sure that parkouring in the fog is a great idea. I spent so long on the stage. I spent so long that half my footage from the sessions are of the stage. I spent 3 days trying to beat the stage, but to no avail. The only technique I know of is keeping your camera extremely close to the ground and carefully walking along it. You see how boring this footage is? Imagine doing this for hours. Worse, there are 2 bombs at the end of the path, and these turn an extremely tedious stage into a near impossible one. Listen, I'm usually not someone who gives up easily, especially not when I'm reviewing a game. It feels wrong if I review a game without fully completing it, but this stage broke me. Having to try it again and again only to die over and over. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry everyone, but this is when I quit the game. I refuse to waste more time on an impossible stage. What the hell? Back to you, Minidroid. Oh, hello everyone. I hated this game. No. Even though I hated this game, that doesn't necessarily make it a bad game. Give it a go, creators. to make players rage, I say they did extremely well at doing so. So I give the creators kudos for that. However, just because the game was intended to be challenging doesn't excuse it for being virtually unplayable. Sure, you could beat Stage 18 with no dedication and toil, but it doesn't mean it's a well-designed level. 95% of the player base won't dedicate much time and effort necessary to complete it. Really, even though Overpowered Joyful Joy Obby did what it set out to do, that doesn't make it a good game, especially for the player. As a player and consumer, this game gets a 3 out of 10 from me. The amount of pain and sheer luck I need to get that far took out most of the fun I could have had during it. That's all there is for this video. I need a break. Goodbye all.